Marcus Thompson woke up at 6 in the morning like he did every day. The old soldier could not sleep past 6 even if he tried. His body was trained for 20 years in the army to wake up early. He rolled out of his small bed and walked to the kitchen. His right leg hurt a little more today. The doctors said it would always hurt after what happened in Afghanistan 3 years ago. Marcus made coffee and sat at his kitchen table. He looked at the check on the table. It was his disability money from the government. Every month they sent him this check because his leg got hurt when he was serving his country. The check was not much money, but it helped him pay for his small apartment and food. He picked up the check and looked at it. Today was Tuesday. He needed to go to the bank and put this money into his account. Marcus did not like using computers or phones to do his banking. He liked to go to the bank and talk to real people. That is how he always did things. Marcus got dressed in his clean clothes. He put on his blue jeans and a white shirt. He looked at himself in the mirror. His hair was gray now and his face had lines from years in the sun, but his back was still straight. He still looked like a soldier even though he was not in the army anymore. He walked to his old truck in the parking lot. The truck was 15 years old, but it still ran good. Marcus took care of it like he took care of everything in his life. He started the truck and drove toward downtown where the First National Bank was located. The drive took 20 minutes. Marcus listened to the radio while he drove. The news was talking about problems in the city. Crime was going up. Young people were getting into trouble more and more. Marcus shook his head. When he was young, people had more respect for others. Marcus parked his truck across the street from the bank. He got out slowly because his leg was stiff. He looked both ways before crossing the street. His mother taught him to do that when he was a little boy. Some things never change. The bank was a big building with glass doors and windows. Marcus could see inside before he went in. There were not many people inside. That was good. He did not like when the bank was crowded. It made him nervous to be around too many people since he came back from the war. Marcus pushed open the heavy glass door and walked inside. The bank was cool and quiet. The floor was made of white marble that was shiny and clean. There were 4 windows where the tellers worked. Only 2 of the tellers were working today. Marcus looked around the bank. There was a security guard standing near the front door. The guard was a young man who looked bored. He was looking at his phone instead of watching the people in the bank. Marcus did not think that was very professional. Near the back of the bank, there were desks where the loan officers worked. Marcus could see 3 young men standing near one of those desks. They were talking loud and moving their hands around a lot. One of them was pointing at papers on the desk. They looked angry about something. Marcus walked toward the teller windows. There was no line because there were not many customers. The first teller was a middle-aged woman with brown hair. She smiled at Marcus when she saw him coming. Marcus waited behind the rope line like he was supposed to do. He was always polite and followed the rules. In the army, following rules kept you alive. Following rules in regular life was just the right thing to do. The young men near the loan desk were getting louder. Marcus could hear them from where he was standing. One of them was using bad words. Marcus did not like hearing that kind of language, especially in a public place like a bank. The teller finished with her customer and called Marcus forward. He walked up to her window and smiled. He took the check out of his shirt pocket and handed it to her. The woman looked at the check and then at Marcus. She had kind eyes and a gentle voice when she spoke to him. Marcus liked dealing with people who were kind. There were not enough kind people in the world anymore. While the teller was working on his deposit, Marcus could still hear the young men arguing. Their voices were getting louder and more angry. Other people in the bank were starting to look at them. The security guard was still looking at his phone. Marcus turned around to see what was happening. The 3 young men were all in their 20s. They had tattoos on their arms and wore clothes that looked expensive. One of them had short blonde hair and was the loudest. Another one was tall and thin with dark hair. The third one was shorter but looked strong. The loan officer, a woman in a business suit, was trying to talk to them in a calm voice. But the young men were not listening to her. They kept getting more upset about something. Marcus could not hear exactly what they were arguing about, but it sounded like they were having money problems. The teller finished with Marcus's deposit and handed him his receipt. She smiled and told him to have a good day. Marcus thanked her and put the receipt in his pocket. He started walking toward the door to leave the bank. As he walked past the area where the young men were arguing, their voices got even louder. The blonde one was now yelling at the loan officer. He was using very bad language and making threats. The other customers in the bank looked scared. Marcus stopped walking. He could not just leave when someone was being treated badly. In the army, they taught him to protect people who could not protect themselves. The loan officer was just doing her job. She did not deserve to be yelled at and threatened. Marcus looked at the security guard. The young man was still looking at his phone. He was not paying attention to what was happening. Marcus could not believe it. This was exactly the kind of situation where the security guard should step in and help. The blonde young man slammed his hand on the desk. The loud sound made everyone in the bank jump. The loan officer took a step back. She looked scared now. The other two young men were encouraging their friend to keep yelling. Marcus made a decision. He could not just walk away and let this happen. He had spent 20 years protecting people. He was not going to stop now just because he was not in the army anymore. He turned around and walked toward the young men. Marcus's leg hurt as he walked, but he ignored the pain. He had been through much worse pain than this. A little hurt in his leg was nothing compared to what he had experienced in the war. He walked with purpose toward the desk where the trouble was happening. The other people in the bank watched Marcus as he walked toward the angry young men. Some of them looked worried. They could tell that something bad was about to happen. But Marcus was not worried. He was doing what he thought was right. That was all that mattered to him. Marcus walked slowly toward the three young men who were still yelling at the loan officer. His leg hurt with each step, but he kept going. The woman behind the desk looked very scared. Her hands were shaking as she held some papers. When Marcus got close enough, he stopped and cleared his throat. The three young men did not notice him at first. They were too busy being angry and loud. Marcus waited for a moment, then spoke in a calm voice. "Excuse me," Marcus said. "I think you should lower your voices. This is a bank, and there are other people here who are trying to do their business." The blond young man turned around and looked at Marcus. His face was red with anger. His eyes were narrow and mean-looking. When he saw Marcus, he laughed in a nasty way. "Who asked you, old man?" the blond one said. His name was Tyler, but Marcus did not know that yet. "This is none of your business. Mind your own business and walk away." Marcus stayed calm. In the army, he had dealt with angry people before. He knew that staying calm was the best way to handle these situations. He kept his voice quiet and respectful. "I am just asking you to be more respectful," Marcus said. "The lady is just doing her job. There is no need to yell at her or use bad language." The tall, thin young man with dark hair stepped closer to Marcus. His name was Jake. He had angry eyes, too. Jake looked Marcus up and down like he was trying to decide if Marcus was a threat. "You think you can tell us what to do?" Jake said. "Look at you. You're just some old guy with a bad leg. Why don't you go home and watch TV or something?" The third young man, who was shorter but had big muscles, came around to Marcus's other side. His name was Connor. Now Marcus was surrounded by the three of them. Other people in the bank started to back away. They could see that trouble was coming. Marcus looked at each of the young men. He was not afraid of them, even though there were three of them and only one of him. In Afghanistan, he had faced much scarier enemies than these three angry young men. But he also knew he was older now and his leg was hurt. Fighting would not be easy. "I am not trying to cause trouble," Marcus said. "I just think everyone should treat each other with respect. That includes treating this lady with respect." Tyler, the blond one, got very angry when Marcus said this. His face got even redder. He stepped closer to Marcus until he was only a few inches away. Marcus could smell alcohol on Tyler's breath. That explained why they were acting so crazy. You want to talk about respect? Tyler said, "You do not look like much to me." "What makes you think you deserve any respect?" Marcus stood up straighter. Even with his hurt leg, he was still tall and had broad shoulders. Years of military training had taught him how to stand like a soldier. Even now, at 58 years old, he still looked strong. "I served my country for 20 years in the United States Army," Marcus said quietly. "I fought in Afghanistan. I got hurt protecting the freedom that lets you stand here and act like this." For a moment, the three young men were quiet. Marcus thought maybe they would understand and calm down. Maybe they would realize they were being disrespectful to someone who had served his country. But he was wrong. Tyler laughed again, but this time it was even meaner. "So what? You think that makes you special? You think that makes you better than us? Nobody cares about your stupid war stories, old man." Jake and Connor laughed too. They thought it was funny to make fun of Marcus's military service. Marcus felt his face get hot. He had been called names before, but making fun of his service to his country was different. "That hurt more than any physical pain." "Yeah," Jake said. "Nobody asked you to go fight in some war. That was your choice. Do not act like you are some kind of hero just because you were dumb enough to let someone shoot you." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about his friends who had died in Afghanistan. He thought about the young soldiers he had tried to protect. He thought about the bomb that had hurt his leg when he was trying to save other people. These young men had no idea what sacrifice meant. When Marcus opened his eyes, he looked directly at Tyler. "I am not asking for special treatment," he said. "I am just asking you to stop yelling at that lady and show some basic human decency." That was when Tyler lost control completely. He put both hands on Marcus's chest and pushed him hard. Marcus was not expecting the push. His hurt leg could not support him properly when he was pushed off balance. He stumbled backward and had to grab onto a counter to keep from falling. "I told you to mind your own business," Tyler yelled. "But you could not listen, could you? You had to stick your nose where it did not belong." The security guard finally looked up from his phone. He saw what was happening, but he did not know what to do. He was young and had never dealt with a real fight before. He just stood there with his mouth open. The tellers behind the counter started to panic. One of them was already on the phone calling 911. The other one was telling everyone to stay calm. But her voice was shaking because she was scared too. Marcus tried to straighten up and get his balance back. But before he could stand up properly, Jake came at him from the side. Jake made a fist and hit Marcus in the jaw. The punch was hard and unexpected. Marcus's head snapped to the side and he tasted blood in his mouth. The hit made Marcus angry, but it also made him remember his military training. Even though he was older and hurt, he still knew how to fight. He started to turn toward Jake to defend himself, but then Connor hit him from the other side. Connor's punch hit Marcus in the stomach. The air went out of Marcus's lungs and he bent over, trying to breathe. His hurt leg gave out and he fell to one knee on the cold marble floor. "Stop it!" the loan officer screamed. "Leave him alone. He was just trying to help me." But the three young men did not stop. They had started something and now they wanted to finish it. Tyler kicked Marcus in the side while he was down on one knee. The kick was hard and it hurt Marcus's ribs. Marcus tried to get back up, but Jake grabbed him by the shirt and punched him in the face again. This time Marcus fell all the way down to the floor. The marble was cold and hard against his back. Connor kicked Marcus in the leg, right where his old injury was. The pain was terrible. It was worse than anything Marcus had felt since he got hurt in the war. He yelled out in pain and rolled to his side, trying to protect himself. "Not so tough now, are you, soldier boy?" Tyler said. He was standing over Marcus, breathing hard from the fight. "Maybe next time you will mind your own business." The three young men looked down at Marcus lying on the floor. There was blood on his face from where they had hit him. His shirt was torn and dirty. His leg was hurting so badly he could not stand up. Other people in the bank were crying and screaming. Everyone was scared. The security guard was finally trying to help, but he was too late. The damage was already done. Marcus lay on the cold floor and looked up at the three young men who had hurt him. He was not angry anymore. He was just sad. Sad that people could be so cruel to each other. Sad that his service to his country meant nothing to them. Sad that the world had people in it who would hurt an old man just for trying to help someone else. Tyler, Jake, and Connor looked around the bank. They saw all the people staring at them. They saw the security guard coming toward them. They heard the sirens in the distance getting closer. They realized they had made a big mistake. Tyler, Jake, and Connor looked at each other with panic in their eyes. They could hear police sirens getting louder outside. The security guard was walking toward them, but he looked scared. The bank tellers were crying and talking on the phone. With 911, "We need to get out of here right now," Tyler said to his friends. His voice was shaking. A few minutes ago, he felt strong and powerful when he was hitting the old man. Now he just felt scared. Jake was already moving toward the door. "Come on, the cops are coming. We have to go." Connor looked down at Marcus one more time. The old veteran was still lying on the marble floor, trying to sit up. There was blood on his face and his shirt was torn. Connor felt a little bit bad about what they had done, but he was too scared to stay and help. The three young men ran toward the front door of the bank. Their shoes made loud sounds on the marble floor as they ran. Other customers moved out of their way. Everyone was afraid of them now. As they pushed through the glass doors, Tyler yelled back into the bank, "This is what happens when you stick your nose in other people's business." Then they were gone. The bank was suddenly very quiet except for the sound of sirens getting closer and closer. Marcus was still on the floor, but now he was trying to sit up. His jaw hurt terribly where Jake had punched him. His ribs hurt from Tyler's kick. But the worst pain was in his leg where Connor had kicked his old injury. It felt like the bomb had exploded all over again. The head teller, a woman named Mrs. Patterson, came out from behind the counter. She knelt down next to Marcus on the floor. Her hands were shaking, but she wanted to help him. "Sir, please do not try to move too much," she said in a gentle voice. "The ambulance is coming." "You might be hurt worse than you think." Marcus looked up at her. Even though he was in pain, he tried to smile. "Thank you, ma'am. You are very kind. Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" Mrs. Patterson was surprised that Marcus was asking about her when he was the one who got beaten up. "I am fine, sir. You are the one who got hurt trying to help me. I cannot believe you did that for someone you do not even know." The security guard finally reached them. His name was Kevin, and he was only 22 years old. This was his first real job after college. He had never seen anything like this happen before. He felt terrible that he had not helped Marcus when the fight started. "I am so sorry," Kevin said. "I should have stopped them. I should have helped you." "I do not know why I just stood there." Marcus looked at the young security guard. Even though Marcus was hurt and lying on the floor, he could see that Kevin felt very bad about what happened. Marcus did not want the young man to feel guilty. "It is okay, son," Marcus said. "You are not trained for this kind of thing." There were 3 of them, and they were very angry. "You could have gotten hurt, too." The lone officer who had been getting yelled at came over to them. Her name was Sarah, and she was about 30 years old. She had been working at the bank for 5 years, but nothing like this had ever happened before. She was still shaking from being scared. "Sir, I am so sorry this happened to you," Sarah said. "You were just trying to help me, and look what happened. This is all my fault." Marcus shook his head even though it hurt to move. "No, ma'am, this is not your fault at all. Those young men chose to act the way they did. You did nothing wrong." Mrs. Patterson brought some ice from the break room and gently put it on Marcus's face where it was swelling up. The ice was cold and it helped a little bit with the pain. She also brought him some paper towels to clean the blood off his face. "What is your name, sir?" Mrs. Patterson asked. "Marcus Thompson," he said. "I have been coming to this bank for 3 years, ever since I moved to this city." "Well, Mr. Thompson, you are a very brave man. Not many people would have stood up to 3 young men like that just to help a stranger." Marcus tried to sit up. A little more. The ice was helping his face feel better, but his legs still hurt very badly. In the Army, they taught us to protect people who cannot protect themselves. I guess old habits are hard to break. Kevin, the security guard, was looking out the window. I can see the police cars coming down the street. And there is an ambulance. Behind them, help is almost here, Mr. Thompson. Marcus nodded. He was glad the police were coming, but he was not sure they would catch the three young men. Tyler, Jake, and Connor had gotten a good head start. They were probably far away by now. Did anyone see what kind of car they were driving? Marcus asked. Sarah raised her hand. I saw them get into a red car when I looked out the window. It looked like a sports car, but I do not know what kind. They were parked about 2 blocks away. Mrs. Patterson was still kneeling next to Marcus. Mr. Thompson, can you tell me if anything feels broken? Do you think you need to go to the hospital? Marcus moved his arms and legs slowly to test them. His ribs hurt, but he did not think they were broken. His jaw was sore, but he could still move it. The worst pain was definitely in his leg, where he had been hurt in Afghanistan. I think I am okay, Marcus said, but my leg is hurting pretty bad. That is where I got injured in the war. When that young man kicked me there, it made the old injury hurt again. The sirens were very loud now. Through the glass windows, everyone could see police cars pulling up in front of the bank. The red and blue lights were flashing and reflecting off the windows and marble floor. They are here, Kevin said. Should I go let them in? The door is not locked, Mrs. Patterson said. They can come right in. Marcus was sitting up now, leaning against the counter. The ice pack was helping his face, but he knew he probably looked pretty bad. He had blood on his shirt, and his hair was messy from rolling around on the floor. 2 police officers came through. The front door? They were both middle-aged men who looked like they had been police officers for many years. They walked quickly but carefully toward the group of people around Marcus. Is everyone safe? The first officer asked. His name tag said Rodriguez. Yes, sir, Mrs. Patterson answered. The 3 men who did this ran away about 4 minutes ago. This gentleman here tried to help us and they beat him up. Officer Rodriguez knelt down next to Marcus. He had kind eyes and a serious expression. Sir, can you tell me what happened here? Marcus told the police officer the whole story. He explained how the 3 young men were yelling at the bank employee. He told them how he had asked them to be more respectful. He described how they had pushed him and hit him and kicked him. The second police officer, whose name tag said Chun, was writing everything down in a notebook. Can you describe what these 3 men looked like? She asked. Marcus gave them the best description he could. He told them about Tyler's blonde hair and angry face. He described Jake's height and dark hair. He told them about Connor's muscles, and how he seemed to be the strongest one. They were all in their 20s, Marcus said, and I could smell alcohol on at least one of them. They seemed drunk or maybe on drugs. They were not thinking clearly. Officer Rodriguez nodded. We are going to catch these guys, Mr. Thompson. Nobody should be able to do this to someone and just walk away. The paramedics came into the bank carrying their medical equipment. They knelt down next to Marcus and started checking his injuries. They looked at his face and felt his ribs and examined his leg carefully. Sir, we think you should come to the hospital with us, one of the paramedics said. You might have some injuries that are not obvious right now, and we want to make sure your leg is okay. Marcus did not want to go to the hospital. He had spent enough time in hospitals when he got hurt in Afghanistan, but he knew the paramedics were right. He needed to make sure he was not hurt worse than he thought. Okay, Marcus said, but can someone call my neighbor and tell her what happened? Her name is Mrs. Garcia, and she lives in the apartment next to mine. She will worry if I do not come home tonight. Officer Rodriguez was writing down Mrs. Garcia's phone number when his radio started making noise. The voice on the radio was excited and talking fast. Rodriguez held up his hand to tell everyone to be quiet so he could listen. All units, the voice on the radio said. We have the suspects in sight. Red sports car, 3 male occupants, stopped at the corner of 5th and Main Street. They appear to be arguing with each other. Officer Rodriguez looked at Officer Chun with surprise. They are still in the area, he said. They have not gotten away yet. Marcus felt a little bit of hope. Maybe these three young men would not get away with what they did? Maybe there would be justice after all. Unit 47, what is your location? The radio voice asked. Officer Rodriguez picked up his radio. Unit 47 is at First National Bank with the victim. We are 2 blocks north of your location. Do you need backup? All available units respond to 5th and Main, the radio said. Suspects are still in the vehicle, but they look like they might try to run. Officer Chun stood up quickly. Rodriguez, you stay here with the victim. I'm going to help with the arrest. She ran toward the door, talking into her radio as she went. Unit 52 responding to 5th and Main. Through the windows of the bank, Marcus could see more police cars driving by with their lights flashing and sirens wailing. It seemed like every police officer in the city was heading toward 5th and Main Street. Officer Rodriguez sat down on the floor next to Marcus. It looks like we might get these guys after all, Mr. Thompson. They made a big mistake by staying in the area. The paramedics were still checking Marcus's injuries. They put a bandage on a cut above his eye and gave him more ice for his swollen jaw. His leg was hurting badly, but they said it did not look like any new damage had been done to his old injury. Mr. Thompson, one of the paramedics said, we really think you should come to the hospital with us. You took some hard hits to your head. We want to make sure you do not have a concussion. Marcus nodded. He was starting to feel dizzy and nauseous. Maybe the paramedics were right. Maybe he was hurt worse than he thought. Mrs. Patterson was still kneeling next to Marcus. Mr. Thompson, I called your neighbor, Mrs. Garcia. I told her what happened and that you might be in the hospital tonight. She said she will take care of your apartment and she will come visit you tomorrow. Thank you, Marcus said. Mrs. Garcia is a very nice lady. She looks out for me since I do not have any family here. Officer Rodriguez's radio crackled again. This time the voice sounded very excited. Suspects are in custody. All 3 suspects are in custody. They tried to run, but we got them. Everyone in the bank cheered. Mrs. Patterson clapped her hands. Kevin, the security guard, smiled for the first time since the whole thing started. Sarah, the loan officer, looked relieved. Marcus closed his eyes and felt grateful. In Afghanistan, the bad guys did not always get caught. Sometimes they got away and hurt more people. But today, in this bank, justice was going to happen. How did they catch them so fast? Marcus asked Officer Rodriguez. The officer smiled. Well, it turns out these 3 geniuses made several mistakes. First, they parked their car only 2 blocks away. Second, they left fingerprints all over the loan officer's desk. Third, they dropped a wallet when they were running out of the bank. Marcus was surprised. They dropped a wallet? Yep, Tyler Morrison, age 24. His driver's license, credit cards, everything was in there. Made it real easy to identify him and find out about his friends Jake Stevens and Connor Walsh. Mrs. Patterson shook her head. They were not very smart criminals. Most criminals are not very smart, Officer Rodriguez said. If they were smart, they would not be criminals. The paramedics were getting ready to take Marcus to the hospital. They brought in a stretcher from their ambulance. Marcus did not want to ride on a stretcher, but his leg was hurting too much for him to walk. Officer Rodriguez, Marcus said as they were lifting him onto the stretcher, what will happen to those 3 young men now? Well, Mr. Thompson, they are going to be charged with assault and battery. Since you are a military veteran, they might also be charged with a hate crime. And since this happened in a bank, there might be federal charges too. Marcus felt satisfied. Not because he wanted revenge, but because he wanted the 3 young men to learn that their actions had consequences. Maybe if they got in enough trouble, they would think twice before hurting someone else. As the paramedics wheeled Marcus toward the ambulance, more police officers came into the bank. Some of them were detectives who wanted to look at the security cameras. Others were regular patrol officers who had helped with the arrest. One of the detectives, a tall woman with gray hair, came over to talk to Marcus before he left for the hospital. Mr. Thompson, I am Detective Williams. I want you to know that we take this very seriously. These three men are not going to get away with what they did to you. Thank you, Detective Williams, Marcus said. I appreciate that. The security cameras got everything, she continued. We have clear video of the whole attack. There's no way their lawyers can say it was self-defense or that you started the fight. Officer Rodriguez walked alongside the stretcher as they headed toward the door. Mr. Thompson, we will need you to come to the police station in a day or two to give an official statement, but for now, just focus on getting better. I will be there, Marcus said. I want to make sure justice is done. As they reached the ambulance, Marcus could see a crowd of people standing around watching. Some of them were bank customers who had been inside during the attack. Others were people from nearby stores who had heard the sirens and come to see what was happening. One of the bank customers, an elderly woman, came up to the stretcher. Young man, she said to Marcus, I want you to know that what you did in there was very brave. Not many people would have stood up for a stranger like that. Marcus smiled at her. Thank you, ma'am. I just did what I thought was right. The paramedics loaded Marcus into the ambulance. Officer Rodriguez climbed in too. I'm going to ride with you to the hospital, Mr. Thompson. I have a few more questions, and I want to make sure you are okay. As the ambulance pulled away from the bank, Marcus could see police cars everywhere. The whole street was blocked off. Crime scene tape was being put up around the bank. It looked like a war zone. Officer Rodriguez, Marcus said, how long do you think those three young men will go to prison? The officer thought for a moment. Well, assault and battery is a serious crime, especially when it is three people attacking one person, and especially when that person is a military veteran who was trying to help someone else. I would guess they will each get at least a few years in prison, Marcus nodded. A few years seemed like enough time for them to think about what they had done and maybe change their ways. He did not want them to spend their whole lives in prison, but he did want them to face real consequences. Mr. Thompson, Officer Rodriguez said, I want you to know that I am a veteran too. I served in Iraq for 2 tours. What those guys said about your service, about nobody caring about your war stories, that was completely wrong. Your service matters. What you did over there matters. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. It had been a long time since anyone had thanked him for his service. Most people just ignored veterans or pretended they did not exist. Hearing Officer Rodriguez say those words meant more to Marcus than catching the 3 young men who had attacked him. Thank you, Marcus said quietly. That means a lot coming from another veteran. The ambulance was almost at the hospital now. Marcus could see the emergency room entrance up ahead. Soon he would be in another hospital, getting checked by more doctors, just like when he got hurt in Afghanistan. But this time was different. This time he knew that the people who had hurt him were going to face justice. This time he was not alone. 3 months later, Marcus sat in the courthouse wearing his best suit. It was the same suit he had worn to military ceremonies when he was still in the army. He had cleaned it and pressed it carefully because he wanted to look respectful in court. The courtroom was full of people. There were reporters from the local newspaper and television station. There were people from the bank, including Mrs. Patterson and Sarah, the loan officer. Officer Rodriguez was there too, along with several other police officers who had helped with the arrest. Marcus looked across the courtroom at Tyler, Jake, and Connor. They were sitting at a table with their lawyers. They were wearing suits too, but they looked very different from the angry young men who had attacked him in the bank. They looked scared and much younger. The judge was an older man with gray hair and a serious face. His name was Judge Harrison, and he had been a judge for 25 years. Before that, he had been a Marine for 4 years. When he heard about Marcus's case, he had asked to be the judge who handled it. The prosecutor was a woman named Ms. Rodriguez. She was the sister of Officer Rodriguez who had helped Marcus at the bank. She had been a prosecutor for 10 years, and she took cases like this very seriously. She believed that people who hurt veterans should face the full consequences of the law. Your Honor, Ms. Rodriguez said as she stood up, the state is ready to present its case against Tyler Morrison. Jake Stevens and Connor Walsh for the unprovoked assault of Mr. Marcus Thompson, a decorated military veteran. Judge Harrison nodded. Very well, please proceed. For the next 2 hours, the prosecutor showed the jury the security camera video from the bank. The video was very clear. It showed Marcus politely asking the 3 young men to lower their voices. It showed Tyler pushing Marcus first. It showed all 3 of them hitting and kicking Marcus. While he was on the ground, the jury watched the video with serious faces. Some of them looked angry at what they were seeing. A few of the women on the jury had tears in their eyes when they saw Marcus getting kicked while he was down. Mrs. Patterson testified about what she had seen and heard. She told the jury how respectful Marcus had been when he came into the bank. She explained how he had only tried to help when the 3 young men were yelling at Sarah. Sarah testified too. She told the jury how scared she had been when Tyler, Jake, and Connor were yelling at her. She explained how grateful she was when Marcus tried to help her, and how terrible she felt when they attacked him for it. Officer Rodriguez testified about finding Marcus bleeding on the bank floor. He talked about how dignified Marcus had been, even after being attacked. He told the jury about Marcus's military service and his injuries from Afghanistan. Then it was time for Marcus to testify. He walked slowly to the witness stand, still limping a little from his leg injury. The courtroom was completely quiet as he sat down and put his hand on the Bible to swear to tell the truth. Ms. Rodriguez asked Marcus to tell the jury what had happened that day. Marcus spoke in a clear, calm voice. He did not sound angry or bitter. He just told the truth about everything that had happened. I was not trying to be a hero, Marcus said. I just saw someone who needed help and I could not walk away. In the Army, they taught us to protect people who cannot protect themselves. I guess I never stopped being a soldier. The defense lawyers tried to make it seem like Marcus had started the fight. They suggested that he had been aggressive or threatening. But the security camera video showed clearly that this was not true. Marcus had been polite and respectful the whole time. When Tyler's lawyer asked Marcus if he was angry at the 3 young men, Marcus surprised everyone with his answer. No, sir, I am not angry, Marcus said. I feel sorry for them. They are young men who made very bad choices. I hope that whatever punishment they receive will help them learn to make better choices in the future. The trial lasted 3 days. On the final day, the 3 defense lawyers gave their closing arguments. They asked the jury to be lenient because their clients were young and had made mistakes. Then, Ms. Rodriguez gave her closing argument. She reminded the jury that Marcus was a military veteran who had been injured serving his country. She pointed out that he had only tried to help someone else and had been brutally attacked for it. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Ms. Rodriguez said, Mr. Thompson served our country with honor for 20 years. He was injured in Afghanistan while protecting all of us. And when he saw someone in trouble, he tried to help, just like he always had. The defendants repaid his kindness with violence. They showed no respect for his service, no respect for his age, and no respect for basic human decency. The jury went into a private room to make their decision. Marcus waited in the hallway with Mrs. Garcia, his neighbor, who had driven him to court every day. Officer Rodriguez waited with them, along with Mrs. Patterson from the bank. After 2 hours, the jury came back. The foreman, a middle-aged man who looked like he might be a veteran himself, stood up to read the verdict. On the charge of assault and battery against Tyler Morrison, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of assault and battery against Jake Stevens, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of assault and battery against Connor Walsh, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted in quiet applause. Marcus felt relief wash over him. Justice had been served. A week later, Marcus was back in the same courtroom for the sentencing. Judge Harrison had read all the reports about the case. He had also read letters from people who knew Marcus, including his former commanding officer from Afghanistan. Tyler was sentenced first. Mr. Morrison, Judge Harrison said, you are 24 years old. You are old enough to know better than to attack a man who was trying to help someone else. You are sentenced to 4 years in state prison. Jake was sentenced to 3.5 years. Connor, who had kicked Marcus in his injured leg, was sentenced to 5 years. After the sentencing, Judge Harrison asked Marcus to stay in the courtroom. When everyone else had left, the judge came down from his bench and shook Marcus's hand. "Mr. Thompson," Judge Harrison said, "I am a Marine veteran myself. I want you to know that what you did in that bank took real courage, and the way you have handled yourself through this whole process has been an example to everyone." "Thank you, Your Honor," Marcus replied. "I just did what I thought was right." "That is exactly what I mean," the judge said. "You are a good man and a good soldier. Do not ever let anyone tell you otherwise." 6 months after the trial, Marcus received a letter in the mail. It was from Connor Walsh, one of the young men who had attacked him. Connor was writing from prison. The letter was short and handwritten. Connor apologized for what he had done. He said that he had been drinking and using drugs that day, but he knew that was no excuse. He said that being in prison had given him time to think about his life and the bad choices he had made. Connor also wrote that he had joined a veteran support group in prison. There were other inmates who were veterans, and they had told him more about what military service meant. He said he understood now how wrong it had been to make fun of Marcus's service to his country. Marcus read the letter twice, then put it in a drawer with his other important papers. He was glad that Connor was learning from his mistakes. Maybe prison would help all three of them become better people. A year after the attack, the bank held a special ceremony to honor Marcus. They gave him a plaque that called him a Good Samaritan and American hero. They also gave him a check for $5,000 as a reward for his bravery. Marcus accepted the plaque gratefully, but he donated the money to a support group for veterans who were having trouble adjusting to life after the military. "I do not need a reward for doing what was right," he told the newspaper reporter who was covering the story. The reporter asked Marcus if he regretted getting involved that day in the bank. Marcus thought about the question for a moment before answering. "No," he said finally, "I do not regret it at all. I would do the same thing again if I had to. Sometimes you have to stand up for what is right, even if it costs you something. That is what being an American means to me." The newspaper article was published the next day with the headline, "Local Veteran, I Would Do It Again." The article was shared hundreds of times on social media. People from all over the country sent Marcus letters thanking him for his service and his courage. Marcus kept all the letters in a box in his closet. Sometimes when he was having a bad day or his leg was hurting more than usual, he would read a few of them. They reminded him that there were still good people in the world who cared about doing the right thing. 5 years later, Marcus received another letter. This one was from Tyler Morrison. Tyler had been released from prison early for good behavior. He had gotten his high school diploma while he was in prison and had started taking college classes. Tyler's letter was longer than Connor's had been. He wrote about how sorry he was for what he had done. He said that attacking Marcus was the worst thing he had ever done in his life. He wrote that he thought about it every day and wished he could take it back. Tyler also wrote that he had joined the Army after getting out of prison. He was going through basic training and hoped to serve his country the way Marcus had.